I'm Rob.
And I'm Nate.
And welcome back to Rob and Nate Record a Podcast. Now, proceed. The presses have been stopped.
The presses have been stopped. So we are recording this in early July. Melinda's out of town, so we got together over the weekend to watch a couple movies. We each selected one, movies that we wanted to show each other. We will start with Robert's selection.
Yes, and this is a movie I have been trying to persuade you to watch. How long would you say I've been trying to persuade you to watch this movie?
5+ years, maybe, since you saw it.
I don't think it's been quite 5 years, but it's easily been at least 2 or 3 years. And the movie that forced is probably the wrong way to phrase that, right? Mm-hmm. But the movie that I pressured Nate to watch this weekend is the 2013 Robert Redford starring vehicle, All Is Lost, directed by J.C. Chandor. And there's literally only 2 credits in this entire movie. Robert Redford and Dayapa Ganeshwar Reddy, who is an uncredited crowd. There's no picture on IMDb. There's just the one name. But this movie really is just Robert Redford.
He's got to be the hand, right?
I don't know.
It's like the only other part of a person you see in the movie.
Yeah, that I can think of. But Robert Redford's titled role in this movie is Our Man.
Our Man, Robert Redford.
He doesn't even have a name in the movie.
Bill McKay for a better way.
He literally speaks a grand total of 3 times in this movie. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's like 8 words total.
Something like that.
Yeah.
What is this movie about?
All Is Lost is, after a collision with a shipping container, Robert Redford's boat is damaged, and it's watching him try to salvage his boat and then try to simply survive long enough to be rescued. And just all of the things that he goes through, all of the perils, all of the hazards, all of the, it just goes on and on. All of the things, bad things that keep happening to this guy. In some ways you could compare it to a Job story, but there's no religious connotation implied in this film. But everything just keeps not going according to plan for Robert Redford's character. His boat ultimately sinks, and he has issues with his life raft, with his supplies in his life raft. He's able to make it to the shipping channel and is repeatedly not spotted by passing boats.
2 boats pass him.
Yeah. And, the ending it's an ambiguous ending. I think we disagree on our interpretation of the endings. Mm-hmm. But the ending is left entirely open for interpretation. And for a movie that has maybe, 25-30 seconds of anyone speaking in the entirety of this hour and 46-minute movie, it's surprisingly compelling and entertaining.
Yeah, it is compelling.
A movie that has no speaking.
It's very kinetic. It's very well shot. It's a great looking movie. It was not an expensive movie to make. I want to say it cost something like
$9 million.
And it made something like
$6 million domestically, $13 million worldwide.
Which is pretty good. That pays for itself. And Robert Redford was in his mid-70s when he made this film. And he was able to be convinced. I mean, this was not an easy shoot for a man for a septuagenarian. He was convincing. He seemed like he knew everything he was doing. I imagine that. I don't know if he was a sailor. We always associate him more with the mountains and horses than with the boat. Yeah. He's Curly's brother, not Curly, or vice versa. But I mean, he's really good in it. Spencer Tracy in The Old Man and the Sea. Jimmy Stewart in The Spirit of St. Louis. Tom Hanks in Castaway. These are films known for the central player carrying the film basically alone. But in each of those films, there are scenes in which that central player interacts with other characters. There's none of that. None of that in this film. You see a hand at the end, which might be a rescuer or might be a hallucination.
Yeah.
And that is all you get. Yeah, I think you see pictures of family in the boat. That's the only other image of humans. And I did want to claim my little victory when I correctly predicted what was inside the shipping container. I'm like, it's going to be tennis shoes.
You said that, and I was like, you know something about
And I did not. I did not know that. But shipping containers fall off the big boats periodically. Yep. And I remember reading many years ago a story about a container full of tennis shoes that fell off a boat. And because the tennis shoes, there's the left shoes and the right shoes, the current put one type of shoe down to California, and the other type of shoe ended up on the Washington coast.
Yeah.
Because just those little structural thing made it catch different currents.
Yeah. So Robert Redford has said that the most grueling aspect of this film was not performing the stunts, which he insisted on performing himself in this movie. Any guesses what the most grueling part was?
No.
Being wet all the time during filming.
Yeah.
Because the boat, the opening scene of the movie is the boat being struck by the shipping container, and it's filling with water. And he's basically not completely submerged, but at least partially submerged almost the entirety of the rest of the movie. Between storms, between water in his vessels, things of that nature. Yeah, this was a strong film. I was quite impressed by this film the first time I saw it, and I've been bugging Nate to watch it ever since. I rated this when I first saw it 9 stars on the 10-star scale.
I would give it 3.5 on the 4-star, and I would give it 8 on the 10-star scale.
So we're not too far apart on this one either. So after we watched All Is Lost, Nate, what did you show me?
Another film, which ironically, Rob was like, can you think of 2 more thematically different films to see as a double feature? It's like, well, there is a through line. The phrase "all is lost" is uttered in our second film, 2001's Wet Hot American Summer. What did you think of Wet Hot American Summer?
This was the first time I saw this, and I spent a lot of the film wondering where it was going. Which it doesn't really go anywhere. That's not really the point of this film.
Yeah, exactly.
It also has a tremendous number of familiar faces. For a 2001 film, I was shocked how many faces this has in it.
Janine Garofalo, David Hyde Pierce, Michael Showalter, Paul Rudd, Christopher Maloney, Molly Shannon, Joe Lou Tagullo, Michael Ian Black, Amy Poehler, Bradley Cooper, Elizabeth Banks. This is a film that was written and directed by Michael Showalter and a man named David Wayne. They were in a comedy troupe that I guess had a show on, I think, MTV in the early 90s called The State. A friend of mine going back to middle school named Joe Lukey, big fan of this movie. He would talk about it fairly often. I put off seeing it until probably the last 4 or 5 years. And I found it, as I mentioned before, first time I tend to watch movies for plot. And if the movie doesn't have a conventional plot, sometimes that throws me off. So I did return to it, and I found this, to my experience, to be a very rewatchable movie. It's just the gags and the absurdities of the situations and the weird jumps, the logical jumps the film has. This movie is about the last day of camp at a Camp Firewood in Maine in 1981. It is a send-up of the summer camp genre with a lot of the cliches about the romance storylines and a lot of the relationship stuff. And the big kind of conceit of the film is you've got all these actors that are in their 30s playing people in their late teens. And you almost need to have that spelled out to you, because if you don't and you watch it, you're like, what? And then you kind of catch on based on the dialogue. These people are much younger
about
than they are.
20 to 30 minutes in, yeah.
I think I even told you that because I didn't want you to be too distracted by it.
I don't think you did.
I don't think you registered, maybe.
I mean, I don't think you told it to me. If you did, it had to have been ahead of Saturday, because it was not in my brain going into the movie Saturday. So it took me a little while to catch on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's stupid.
There is no real plot to track through this movie.
David Wayne is trying to get with this girl, and he kind of succeeds, and then the next day she shoots him down and says, "You're just not attractive enough, and I'm 16, so I'm going to go with the hot jerk."
Yeah.
But you're a nice guy. Everybody says so.
Yeah. It was a fun movie.
Yeah, there's just crazy plots. This portion of Skylab is going to crash into the camp, and this one kid seems to have superpowers that are never explained. He acts like he's an alien, and maybe he really was an alien the whole time. And then at the end, all these couplings that are like that Molly Shannon with the 12-year-old boy. We're going to get married. And then David Hyde Pierce and Janine Garofalo, who literally met the other day. Yeah. I'm pregnant. We finally succeeded.
Yeah.
It's silly. It's not for everybody. There's some real gross out humor in it, particularly the Christopher Maloney character has some weird hang-ups.
Absolutely.
But I don't think it ever gets that explicit.
In 2001, how did they even get Christopher Maloney to film this?
Christopher Maloney wasn't Christopher Maloney yet.
Not completely, but I mean, Yeah, I mean, if I was a casting person and I saw Wet Hot American Summer and then was looking at Christopher Maloney for Law and Order
Oh,
SVU,
you're right. This would be right around the same time.
I would not be hiring him for Law and Order SVU if I saw this. So,
Right. It's a silly movie. I would probably give it. I'd probably give it 3 stars
yeah.
and probably 7 on the 10 stars.
I would give
scale.
this 2 and 6. It was entertaining enough for me to keep it, up that high. But there's a lot of the gross out humor. There's a lot of the, it's making fun of a lot of the traditional shticks.
It's got a great soundtrack too.
But it does a good job of making fun of them.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
I challenge you to rewatch this next summer.
Okay.
Like, this movie is now on my summer trinity,
Yeah.
along with The Way, Way Back in Jaws.
That is a very odd summer trinity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the fact that you called that your summer
Summer
trinity.
trinity.
That's a highly entertaining summer trinity. We're going to have to start telling that to guests that come on the podcast.
Indeed.
Just see how they react.
Just summer trinity. I should do that as a marathon weekends.
Yeah. Yeah. Fun. All right. Anything else to add tonight?
I'm good.
I'm Rob,
I'm Nate.
and this is Rob and Nate Record a Podcast.